There are few men in modern boxing who command respect quite like Saul, Canelo, Álvarez, and even fewer foolish enough to test that respect. Over the years, Canelo has built a reputation not only as one of the most skilled technicians in the sport, but as a man who will not forgive disrespect. Those who mocked him, underestimated him, or dare to call him small learn the hard way that arrogance inside a ring with Canelo Álvarez is a death sentence. The Mexican superstar, calm and composed on the surface, carries beneath that stoic exterior the spirit of a fighter who never forgets. And for those who crossed him, their downfall became unforgettable moments of brutal karma, executed by Canelo's merciless fists. The story begins in 2015, a year that many saw as Canelo's rebirth. Having learned from his first professional loss to Floyd Mayweather, Álvarez entered his fight against James Mandingo Warrior Kirkland with something to prove. Kirkland was known for chaos, a wild brawler with a savage knockout record and a mouth to match. He promised to be in Canelo's face, to suffocate him with pressure, to make him smell his breath by the end of the first round. His words dripped with arrogance, and he strutted into fight week like a man ready to devour the young Mexican star. But when the bell rang, his bravado was ripped from him with surgical precision. Before a roaring crowd of over 40,000 fans, Canelo wasted no time in dissecting the so-called warrior. Every punch he threw was deliberate, violent, and calculated. Kirkland charged forward like a bull, but Canelo, cool, unreadable, let him walk straight into a right hand that sent him crashing to the canvas. The crowd gasped. Kirkland got up, dazed but defiant, only to be met by another barrage of combinations that tore through his guard. Each shot echoed through the arena until finally, in the third round, Canelo landed a single right hand that folded Kirkland like a paper doll. The referee didn't even bother to count. It was over. A statement knockout so vicious it would later be named the best of the year. The Mandingo Warrior, who entered the ring full of swagger, left it broken, silent, and humbled. But that wasn't the first time a cocky opponent learned the price of mocking the red-headed prodigy. Years earlier, in 2009, a young and fiery Canelo faced a loudmouth street fighter named Leonardo Taina. Taina, who bragged about his time fighting in the streets with bats and guns, saw the teenage Álvarez as an easy target, a polite Mexican kid he could bully and embarrass. He taunted him mercilessly before the fight, daring anyone to shut his mouth, and laughing at the idea that Canelo could hurt him. But the moment the opening bell rang, reality came crashing down. Canelo, just 19 but already fighting with the composure of a veteran, attacked like a storm. His punches were short, sharp, and ruthless. Taina tried to brawl, swinging wildly, but every time he opened up, Canelo punished him with counters that snapped his head back. The crowd could see the tide shifting as Taina's confidence turned into panic. He tried to foul, to grab, to throw elbows, anything to stop the inevitable, but Canelo was relentless. By the later rounds, Taina's face was swollen and his spirit broken. When the final bell rang, there was no question who ruled that ring. The young man Taina once mocked had given him a masterclass in controlled fury, beating him from bell to bell and teaching him a painful lesson in humility. Years later, another fighter would make that same mistake on a much grander stage. In 2021, Canelo faced Billy Joe Saunders, a slick-talking, undefeated British champion who spent the build-up mocking the Mexican's stature, his style, even his red hair. Saunders' confidence was unmatched. He told reporters he would smash Canelo, calling him overrated and slow. He even mocked Álvarez's decision to vacate a title years earlier, sneering that the little ginger wasn't on his level. But when fight night arrived, Canelo had no intention of proving his worth with words. He planned to do it with his fists. From the opening round, the tone was set. Canelo stalked forward, cutting off the ring, forcing Saunders into uncomfortable corners. Every movement, every punch was measured, a methodical execution in progress. Saunders, still smirking, stuck out his tongue between exchanges, taunting Canelo as if he were untouchable. But that arrogance only fueled the storm brewing inside his opponent. In the 8th round, it struck. Canelo slipped a jab and unleashed a savage uppercut that landed flush, shattering Saunders' orbital bone. The Brit stumbled back, his eyes swelling instantly, the pain visible even as he tried to pretend he wasn't hurt. But his body betrayed him. Moments later, his corner waved the towel. Canelo had broken him, physically, mentally, and symbolically. The same man who once laughed at the idea of losing to a Little Ginger, left the ring barely able to see, his undefeated record gone and his pride in ruins. But perhaps no moment defined Canelo's brand of vengeance quite like his clash with the Russian powerhouse Sergei Krisher Kovalev in 2019. Kovalev, the light heavyweight champion, was a beast, taller, stronger, and with a reputation for annihilating anyone foolish enough to trade with him. He'd held 3 world titles and even dismantled legends like Bernard Hopkins. When Canelo moved up in weight to challenge him, critics called it a mistake. Kovalev himself mocked the decision, scoffing that Canelo was too small and promising to kick his ass. To most, it sounded like a mismatch. But Canelo was chasing history, and history demands risk. For most of the fight, Kovalev's size and jab dictated the pace. He peppered Canelo with long, stiff punches, keeping him at bay. It looked, for a moment, like the Mexican had bitten off more than he could chew. But Canelo never looked panicked. He kept pressing forward, his defense tight, his body shot sinking deeper each round. Slowly, the rhythm changed. The giant began to slow. His jab lost its sting. And then came the 11th round, the moment Canelo had been waiting for. As Kovalev leaned just slightly off balance, Canelo unleashed a thunderous left hook followed by a right hand straight down the middle. The shot detonated like a bomb. Kovalev collapsed against the ropes, motionless. The crowd erupted. The so-called too small challenger had just knocked out one of the most feared punchers in the division, claiming the light heavyweight crown in devastating fashion. Canelo's trail of vengeance didn't stop there. In 2013, he faced Austin Trout, an undefeated American champion who carried himself with the smug confidence of a man who thought he had already solved the Mexican's puzzle. Trout dismissed Canelo in interviews, saying he would turn him all night and make him run into something ugly. But in the ring, Trout's words vanished as quickly as his game plan. Canelo's counterpunching was immaculate. His defense, underrated for years, was on full display. He slipped punches with ease, returning fire with brutal accuracy. By the middle rounds, the difference in class was glaring. Canelo dropped Trout with a picture-perfect right hand and then dominated the rest of the fight. By the time the scorecards were read, it wasn't just a win. It was a public reminder that disrespecting Canelo comes with consequences. And then there was Daniel Jacobs, the confident, smooth-talking American middleweight who promised to expose Canelo in 2019. Jacobs called himself the best in the world and vowed to hurt the Mexican star, to humiliate him and take his throne. But like all those before him, his bravado evaporated when the fight began. Canelo's precision and timing overwhelmed him. Every exchange told the same story. Jacobs swinging wide, Canelo slipping just out of range, then answering with combinations that snapped his opponent's head back. By the later rounds, Jacobs had abandoned his talk of domination and was simply trying to survive. When the final bell rang, Canelo's hand was raised yet again. Another fighter silenced, another lesson taught. Over and over, history repeats itself. The cocky become the humbled. The loud become the silent. And standing at the center of it all is Saul Canelo Álvarez, the man who lets his fists do the talking. He doesn't chase drama, but when it finds him, he ends it in the only language he knows: precision, power, and punishment. From James Kirkland's collapse to Billy Joe Saunders' broken face, from Kovalev's stunned defeat to Tyner's forgotten arrogance, every one of these fights carried a single message: respect is earned, but disrespect is punished. Canelo doesn't just beat opponents. He dismantles them. He breaks their rhythm, their confidence, and finally their bodies, until they understand what it means to step into the ring with greatness. For over a decade, he stood as the embodiment of Mexican pride, disciplined, unflinching, and relentless. And though new challengers continue to rise, all know the same truth: mock Canelo Álvarez at your own peril. Because inside that squared circle, karma isn't patient. It doesn't wait. It comes in the form of a glove, a counterpunch, and a man who's made a career out of silencing arrogance with violence. So what do you think? Which Canelo knockout was the most satisfying act of karma? Was it the night he shut up Kirkland with a single right hand, or when he broke Billy Joe Saunders' eye and his ego in the same moment? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy these cinematic breakdowns of boxing's most brutal moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in the world of boxing, stories like these aren't just about fights, they're about lessons, And Canelo Álvarez has taught them all the hard way,